Hey y'all, welcome back to the Laidback Homestead. I'm Crystal and today is our big planting day. I have over 100 tomato plants that need to find their way into our garden. They are beyond ready to get out of their cups. We had a late cold snap, so I had to wait, but it's definitely time to get them going. Now, I started over 40 varieties of tomatoes for the spring 2026 garden. I'm not going to go over every variety that I started. I do have that video and I will link it at the end if you're interested to see how this garden got started. Let's get planting. I get asked often, what amendments do I use in my beds on planting day? And truthfully, I don't do much. I do a top dress of wood ash from our smoker, a layer of granulated fertilizer, and then I go in with a layer of alfalfa pellets. Now, the reality is, I feel that's only half the story because, yes, that's all I do day of planting, but I practice compost in place in all of my garden beds, which means these beds are constantly getting food scraps added to them. I also chop and drop and add fresh compost at the end of every season. So when it comes time to actual planting day, there's really not a whole lot that I need to add other than that top dress. And I don't even mix it in because as rain falls or we water the beds, it's going to slowly break down over time. And my beds are self-watering beds, which means they are not open at the bottom. They have a reservoir. And the beauty of these builds is that the nutrients that are in here stay in here. I have very little runoff or waste. So it helps me not have to fertilize as often, and I can get away with just a really light top dressing on planting day. If I was going to add anything to the whole, it would maybe be a handful of vermicompost out of my worm tower. Now, because I compost in place, that's not necessary because 9 out of 10 times when I put my hand in the hole to plant, I'm actually having to move the worms out of the way. So they're already in here leaving their compost, vermicompost, worm castings, if you will, because I compost in place. And now it's time to plant. But the most important thing you can do to optimize your success when planting, you need to know where your sun is and where your sun is going to be in the late spring and into the summer if you're fortunate enough to get these babies to keep producing that long. Where I live, this is mainly a spring and fall crop. So why is that so important? Tomatoes need a certain amount of sunlight to not only produce tomatoes, but to ripen tomatoes. And it's important that they get that. Otherwise, you're going to end up really frustrated. Now, right now today, it is an overcast day, which is actually great for transplanting to avoid transplant shock. However, I know that the sun travels from up over my house, across this way, and sets back there. I live in a very wooded area behind my house. So I actually have to prioritize where I place my tomatoes. I also need to watch what varieties I'm planting. I don't want to have, a determinate be behind a beefsteak and the beefsteak is going to shade out my determinate. Same thing goes with peppers. I need to align where my peppers are going to be so that they don't get shaded out because they're not getting planted out today. They're going to get planted out next week when our nighttime temperatures are in the mid to upper 50s. So this week, because we're still kind of in the 40s, it's just tomato day, which means I have to be very strategic about where I place these big old tomatoes. This bed's going to be all slicers and peppers. I'm leaving room where I know the peppers need to go in order to have their own space. But this bed has some of the best producing varieties of tomatoes that I've grown so far. I mean, you can just see the roots. I do practice the double cup method, well, my own version of it, where I use those trays as the second cup or the bottom cup. And I'm just moving my worms out of the way. This one is bodacious. I am very excited for this. This is new to me. And I will be very gentle, teasing these longer roots. In a perfect world, these would have been planted out 2 weeks ago, but because of that late cold snap, I had to wait. But you can see, because of the double cup method, they're not very overgrown as far as their roots go. Now, I do want to make sure this goes in deep as I can get it for the most support. Next up is hillbilly. My first year growing the yellow brandywine. I've grown the other colors of brandywine. I've not grown the yellow yet. Well, them white roots. Now this guy is new to me this year, and that's Big Rainbow. Now you can see by practicing the double cup method, my plants, even though they've had to stay in their cups well past their prime, they're really not super root bound. If you haven't tried growing that way, I highly suggest it. And the last one I'm putting in this bed is Cherokee Carbon. I've grown Cherokee Purple and I've grown Carbon, but I haven't grown the Cherokee Carbon. So this first garden bed is planted out. Before I get too far into this, I want to thank today's sponsor, Cow Cow. Cow Cow is an Amazon store that specializes in rubber boots, and they recently sent over these women's ankle boots. I've been wearing them a ton out here in the garden. I live where we have really wet, swampy ground, tall grass, and even a pond to maintain. So having something that's actually waterproof and durable is just a must. These are completely waterproof and they clean up really easily, which, let's be honest, is important because everything gets dirty out here. They're also really lightweight and breathable, so I can wear them for long stretches without feeling like I need to take them off. And they're super easy to slip on and off with the pull tabs, which just makes them really convenient for everyday use, both indoors or outdoors. I actually wore these all day while planting out my tomato plants, and they stayed comfortable the entire time. And Cow Cow is kind enough to offer our viewers a discount code, which I will have both their Amazon store as well as the coupon code linked down below in the description box. So thanks again, Cow Cow. So I practice square foot gardening, but with my own twist, and that in this particular bed, I will have 9 main plants. I have 6 tomatoes and 3 peppers up front. That makes up what I call the bulk of the bed. But then I will come through and add in herbs. In this bed, we have Greek oregano, and I'll add in flowers. I have some pink dandelion growing back there. But when that peters out, because I know it will, I'm probably going to come in and plant like a zinnia or something that's heat loving over on this side. And then I've got this trellis here. I will come put a row of beans out probably this week now that we're getting warmer. And honestly, that's just how I grow a whole lot of food in a small amount of space. I almost feel like you have to break the rules sometimes. Now this is a new one for me that I'm really looking forward to. It's the Awaxacan Pink. I have not grown this pink variety, but I do tend to like pink tomatoes. I find them just a bit sweeter. This is another new to me that I'm excited about. It's the Orange Jazz. And just like that, another bed done. Thankfully, it's really nice weather outside and it's not humid. Yes, I do still have a Brussels sprout growing in the middle of this bed that I'm not sure if I'm going to leave it here or not. It looks like it's got some tiny Brussels on it, but we'll see. The snapdragons this year are not disappointing. Another bed done with tomatoes. Now, you may be saying, Crystal, aren't these a little close? Yes, but as I mentioned earlier, I kind of go for the chaos garden. No risk, no reward. I am leaving room pepper, pepper, pepper up front. And this trellis typically has cucumbers. I'm not sure if I'll do the cucumbers here again or over here. I'm leaning this way because this way area gets more sun. The cucumbers like the sun more than the beans. So we'll see. We'll see how I feel. But composting in place, free food. Okay, let's talk strategy for a second. This bed back here does not get a lot of sunlight. In fact, it probably gets the least amount of sunlight out of everything in this yard. So I do need to be strategic about what I plant back here. So this bed is mainly determinates, a few bush pace varieties, an English daisy that's going to enjoy the shade come our summer, and then a couple of cherry varieties. And celery likes the shade too down here. And the reason why this is important is because they will have a better chance at not only producing fruit, but also having it ripen. These types of varieties don't tend to need as much sun as, say, my slicers in the rest of the yard. So if you have a space that doesn't get as much sun, maybe consider a cherry variety or a pace variety or a determinate variety. I do find my determinants to be a little bit more forgiving with sun requirements. I came around to this bed and I want to plant in it, but I have to make room. So I've got this bolting cilantro, which I'm just going to chop and drop, and this parsley I'm going to give a big old haircut to and actually take that all inside to make more chimichurri sauce. Does anyone else have awkward moments where you find stuff that you didn't even know you were growing? I totally forgot that I had thrown some turnip seeds out in one of my beds. And yeah, surprise. Alrighty, took a little break. I'm about halfway done, so that's exciting. Over 50 plants have already been planted. All right, took a little break. Had to go pick up my kids from school. Halfway done. I've got to do row C. I already have some of my cups out, so, and those beds have already been amended. I just have to get everybody in the ground. So I'm hoping that this bed, being a newer build, will work out well for us. This is the Dixie Golden Giant. And I also have here the speckled Roman that we already had planted out. That's really doing really well. And banana legs. These two are both doing really well in my raised bed as well as in my hydroponic system. In fact, that banana leg is already setting fruit. So I planted all yesterday into the late evening, and I decided to wait for better light this morning to show you the big reveal. And here we have our tomatoes for the 2026 spring garden. Everybody did well last night. Not seeing any transplant shock, so that is promising. Well, there you have it. 100 tomato plants all in the ground. I do still have more tomato plants left over that will either be planted out in hydroponic bucket systems that I haven't set up yet, or will be planted out at our homestead property, or just give it away to friends and family. I really do try to take my time and really select the best and the brightest for my yard. So I'm very anxious to see how these continue to grow throughout the season. And this is definitely my biggest year yet, so I'm very excited about that. And it's not all success. Some things didn't make it. As I'm sorting through my tomatoes to be planted, I pick out the ones that just don't look good, and they end up on the failure tray. And that's okay. That's part of life. It's no big deal. But that's also why I plant so many seeds across so many varieties, because I never know who's truly going to perform well. And I can't wait to harvest my first big, juicy tomato of the season. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in seeing how this garden progresses along all spring and into summer, I encourage you to subscribe. And until next time, stay blessed.